The Flash just aired its season 3 finale, and in true CWDC fashion, it ended with a huge cliffhanger, so full spoilers for Finish Line if you haven't yet seen it. I'm Terri Schwartz, this is Joshua Yale, and we have a theory, though, about what Barry Allen heading into the Speed Force means for the show. Joshua, do you want to dig into
It's Flash Rebirth. It's going to be Flash Rebirth, which is a story we know from the comics as when Barry Allen had been gone a long time, and turns out he was lost in the Speed Force, kind of like what we saw him walk into at the end of this episode. And Wally had been the Flash for a long time, had put on the red costume and everything, but then Barry came back and was the Flash again.
So that's the main premise of the Rebirth storyline, which is a very famous Flash arc. And I think what's interesting, though, about the fact that the show seems to be pulling from this story arc is that they've already pulled a lot of elements from the Rebirth story already.
Yeah, a big, huge part of that was realizing that it was the Reverse Flash who killed Barry's mother, and they really just set that into canon.
So a huge part of season 1.
Yes, yes. And there's like the Black Flash kind of pops up, and then
obviously,
yeah, Zoom kind of like became that at the end. So it's all been, there's like huge chunks of it have already been on the show. So I'm curious to see where they're gonna go with it, because I feel like the main idea of it is really that Wally takes over as the Flash. In the comic books, there's a whole generation of people who know Wally as the Flash and not Barry, because he was Flash for a really long time. And then so when Barry came back, it really changed things up. So I think that leads us to the question of how do they execute this in season 4?
Right, I think in this season we obviously had a similar cliffhanger at the end of last year where Barry went back and changed time and saved his mother, and we're all like, oh my god, it's going to be Flashpoint. But then Flashpoint was only 1 episode, and I personally would have liked to see it go a little bit longer. Obviously we saw the repercussions of Flashpoint throughout the entire season, all the way up into Barry making this decision at the end and needing to put someone in the Speed Force. But I think that to make this choice have weight to it, I really would like to see Barry be away for more than 1 episode. I don't want to see Barry Allen to come back out of the Speed Force at the end of the first episode, even if they have like a bunch of flashbacks in later episodes. It's hard to have the Flash without the Flash, but we do have Wally West, even if we don't have Barry Allen.
Yeah, I really want to see Wally, like this show's Wally, become Flash. We'll see him in the red outfit and everything. Maybe he'll have his own personal rogues gallery and everything. We'll see there'll be a time jump. We'll see what life is like without Barry Allen as the Flash. And maybe we could have a couple episodes and he doesn't come back at the end of the first episode. Please don't come back at the end of the first episode. And he'll maybe we'll see what he's up to in the Speed Force, and maybe he has a higher purpose there and he needs to maybe fix it, and we'll see a few episodes. Maybe give me 6 episodes. How about that? Where Wally's the Flash in the real world.
That's like almost at November sweeps there. I like where you're at.
That would be great, right? And then Barry sort of like fixes the Speed Force and comes back to our world, but things aren't the same.
I think that's the main thing that I'd love to see the Flash TV show pull from Rebirth, is this idea that the world has moved on after Barry Allen, his death, or before his return, his rebirth. And so I'd love to see that happen on the show as well. He tells Iris to keep on running. He says his goodbyes to everyone, and I think Barry makes his peace with his exit. So I don't want to see people mourning him and not being able to move on, like we sort of saw in the alternate future with Savitar post Iris's death in that alternate idea of what the future could be. So I would like to see, do I want to see Iris find another guy? Absolutely not. But do I want to see there to be her real progression in her journalism career? I would like to see Wally really step into his own as the Flash, and then part of the struggle for Barry upon his return is what is his place within the show.
Love it.
Love it. So that's sort of our theory here, but I think we should also quickly touch upon what we thought about Barry's decision to enter the Speed Force. Did it work for you?
Well, I feel like he did need to pay a cost for Flashpoint, because it would be too nice of a bow if they deal with all the problems and they take out Savitar, and then he saves his girl and they're gonna get married. That's a little too happy of an ending of a guy who literally screwed up all of like space and time and created this alternate world where all these horrible things happen to a lot of people. So that is pretty awful, and he did need to pay for it in a way. And I think you know, saying goodbye to all your loved ones and walking away to the Speed Force is a pretty big cost.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it had the right amount of weight to it, especially on a show where Barry Allen, before we realized Savitar was Barry, Barry had very much become a villain in his own right and was setting off all these terrible things happening and doing them for selfish reasons. And I think if his decision to go into the Speed Force is sort of a reset for that character quirk of his, then the show will be the better for it. I would like to see a more mature, more wholesome Barry. But I do think after a whole season of Barry, or most of a season of Barry trying to like stop Iris from dying because they needed to be together, the idea of him just so quickly coming to terms with the idea that he needs to go away. I guess the reasoning there is because he felt like he had earned it and she had not earned her death, and that is why it was wrong.
Oh, like sort of it was
his cost.
Yes, yeah. Oh man, that's so sad. One more thing before we go is all those lightning strikes at the end. It really reminded me of the second iteration of Flash Rebirth. It's completely different from the one we already talked about. It's actually just happened last year, but the Flash it is in Central City, and there's a Speed Force storm, kind of like what we just saw, and it struck a bunch of other people, and they all became Flashes, and he had to train them to be Flashes. So I wonder if when Season 4 comes, there'll be a bunch of other like Flashes that Wally will be leading like a team of them. Well, that would be crazy.
That's an interesting segue, because what I was going to say is I do hope that this season is maybe like the end of a trilogy for the Flash, and that we do see some significant changes. I'm okay with there being more speedsters on the show, but I think we're all past wanting speedster villains. I want sort of the formulaic elements of the Flash to be left to the wayside. The first three seasons have a lot of, you know, repetitive story moments, and I would like, you know, with Barry's decision to go into the Speed Force, and I think we're safe to presume he will one day come out of it and will remain on the show in some capacity. I would like the show to feel a bit fresher and take some interesting new initiatives in Season 4.
I do believe that Grant Gustin will stay employed.
I think so. Well, fingers crossed. But if for whatever reason he doesn't, or there are any other crazy happenings in the DC CW verse, you can make sure to keep up with all that news here on IGN, and we'll be sure to fill you in on all the DC happenings all summer long while we wait for the Flash to return in the fall.